and capture.
All right. 6:59:51.
You guys are punctual. I like it.
Huh?
You're punctual.
Now we just have to end on that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Challenge accepted.
Mark, I'll sign.
Thanks.
We have someone who's joining his iPhone. Does iPhone have an owner?
I'll say the number.
Steve must.
I'm happy to, and they're basically one more.
Maybe their name is Samsung.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. So, good. Well, it's 7 o'clock. So I think I'll continue to have people. I'll let them in as we go, but we might as well get started.
Yeah.
And so I'm Mike Nash, president of SMUHA, San Mateo United Homeowners Association. And yes, we do accept renters as members. So it's part of the issue with naming. But tonight we have Koha Kojayan and her teammates who will talk to us about reimagining Hillsdale. We'll do a treasurer's report if Joanne shows up, and we'll do minutes. And then at some point, Dave Cohen asked to come in and talk about his proposed ethics committee. So let's go around the room and everyone tell us your name and what neighborhood you're from for the benefit of our guests.
Start here. Okay.
Yeah.
Michael Reagan. I live at 31st Avenue. Also on the Hillsdale. So Hillsdale, Beresford.
Beresford Hills.
Hillsdale, the Homeowners Association. And the board members just came on a couple of months ago.
Yeah, you guys are going to introduce yourselves later. Sir.
My name is Daniel. And
Welcome.
I'm here to learn about the design process because I'm not happy with results. So far, I'm not from the city.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the main focus tonight is on Hillsdale, but we'll talk about that. Great.
Let's try to prevent the disasters from happening.
Okay. So for those of you on Zoom, would you, if you don't know how, okay, but either on your tile or in chat, if you can tell us which community you're a part of, that'll save going around and having everyone do that that way. Hey, Joanne. So, okay, and then over to Tom and family.
Family friends. Thomas Morgan. I'm the president of the Sunnyvale Neighborhood Association.
Great,
Lisa Tanner, Beresford Hills Neighborhood Association.
great. So, okay, I'm going to just leave it at that, and hopefully people will put their names in the chat and we can make sure that gets recorded. But with that, Kohar, over to you.
Thanks, Mike. Why don't we go ahead and share our presentation first, make sure it works. All right, can everybody on Zoom see our presentation?
Yes.
Excellent. So good evening, everyone. My name is Koha Kojayan, and thank you, Mike, for the introduction, and thank you for having us today at the SMUHA meeting. I'm here with Laura Johnson and Kristen Hall. Laura is an urban designer and planner with Gale, and she's going to introduce herself and then also the Gale process to all of you in just a little bit. Kristen Hall is a co-lead with myself on the master planning team for Reimagine Hillsdale. We work closely with the clients in East Bohan and Northwood, and I'll talk a little bit more about that partnership as we go on. We're really happy to be here, so thank you for having us. We know that the Bohannons have been out in the community for many years talking about the future of Hillsdale. We're excited to just hear your ideas today, share a little bit more about our process and what we're thinking over the next several years, and hopefully plan a future that we all love for this huge place in Hillsdale. So thanks again for having us. Next slide. So as everyone knows, the Bohannons have been a shopping center owner for decades. Last year, they did partner with, they brought in a new partner, Northwood. They are now a joint venture on the Hillsdale Shopping Center. And one of the reasons why they brought in Northwood was to create a more exciting place. And Northwood and Bohannon together brought on our team, who is here today, and then a much larger team behind us that supports all the efforts that are underway, including all the open houses and engagement you've seen all around town. A key component of our outreach is really just listening and learning from the community. We believe that there's a people first approach that we have on the project, looking for designing a place for the people. And the people of San Mateo are a key part of that consideration. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Laura to just kick off a little bit about Gale and what Gale does. Gale is a renowned worldwide urban design team that really focuses on people first planning, which is very different than the planning you'll see elsewhere, like downtown. Their approach is very much about designing places for people. So I'll turn it over to Laura.
Thank you all for letting us join you today. Really appreciate the time. And we're looking forward to getting your feedback. I'm Laura Johnson. I'm associate and a project manager at Gale. I have a background in urban planning and architecture, and I also have a background in affordable housing. I worked at a architecture firm in Baker, San Francisco for a number of years and worked on multifamily affordable great housing. So I think when I talk about places for people, I really mean all people. And I think that really aligns with Gale's ethos. So Gale, if you don't know us, we are a global urban design, placemaking, and planning firm. We were originally based in Denmark and had a pretty big hand in the development of Copenhagen as a walkable, likable, really people-first city. And part of that is our approach to making cities for people, where we study the places that we work in. We try to understand the patterns of where people like to spend time, why they like to spend time there, and also talking to people before we kind of tell them what they should want, really asking them what they should want and listening to them and incorporating that feedback into our design. We think that that makes cities much more vibrant. We have offices now in Copenhagen, in New York, and San Francisco, and I'm based in our San Francisco office. And I know I've met some of you in the storefront and in the open houses, on our site walks, and we'll be involved in this process throughout. So hope to see you all after this too. A little bit more about Gale. We are not just designers, we're also a group of social scientists, of data scientists, of people who think about systems, who think about more than just buildings. And we actually really don't think about buildings first. First, we think about life. And when I say life, I mean public life. What makes a great place? What is the space that kind of supports that public life? And then we think about the buildings that can fit into and contribute to that life. And I think it's a really different way of thinking about master planning and urban design than you probably have seen from a lot of other firms. Most firms say, I have a plot that's this big, 5 buildings fit on it, let's go build them. And they kind of just hope that the life arises out of those buildings. We take kind of the opposite approach, where we really think about what makes great public life, what makes great public space, and then we design places that buildings can and support. But we're not kind of waiting for the public life to happen. We think about that first. We also, I saw a comment pop up, maybe people have casual viewing. Oh,
You mean the chat?
yeah. You're saying you can hear a laptop closer? Sure, I can move closer. I'll just move closer to you because I think we're coming out of here. So, yeah, that's no problem.
So the
Got it.
microphone is actually. in
Oh, it's
that.
in that. Okay,
Right,
I'll just come over here.
okay. Don't trip.
You're more fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's no problem. Thank you for letting us know.
Yes.
So
Is that,
When-
if it's
is that
better,
better?
somebody tell us.
It's better. Thank you
It's
very
better.
much.
Okay,
It's
Thank
much better.
great, thank you. So when we talk about what makes a great neighborhood, we know that it's not just the buildings, it's also not just the public life or the public space, but there really are multiple dimensions to making great neighborhoods. These are the 6 that we usually focus on when we're thinking about making a new place: community inclusion and social connectedness, supporting meetings like this, communities like this, culture, creating a place where people can actually find peers and build a community together. Economic activity, it's the backbone of every neighborhood. We know that for a neighborhood to be successful, it needs to be economically successful and economically vibrant. Mobility, so making smart mobility choices, not just focusing on cars, but also on walking and biking and making places more friendly to choice. Sustainability, and of course, urban form and architectural quality. And at the center of each of those, if this works, could you do my? Oops. Oh, if you just move my water bottle on. Oops, I don't know what I just did, Laura.
Just deleted her presentation.
They should probably have it back on.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Why didn't I think of that? I'm not tethered. Neither is my device. Okay, sorry about that, everyone. And then at the center of these kind of 6 dimensions of a great neighborhood, we want public life to thrive. That's why we think that it has to be a multi-dimensional neighborhood. New neighborhoods need these kind of 6 dimensions to support that public life. So going back to Gail's approach to urban design and urban planning, we've always put public life at the center of what we do. And then last, I just want to say that we really believe strongly that great neighborhoods are created through a community-driven design process. So we're not here to say, here's the final plan, live with it. We're here to say, here's some ideas, we want your feedback. We're going to incorporate those ideas. We're going to come back to you, share what we're working on, and kind of use this process to evaluate our ideas, to envision the future together, to strategize a way forward, and then finally come up with a plan that we can implement. And I will pass it over to Kristen to talk more about that.
Watch the line.
So I'm Kristen Hall. I'm an urban designer and planner also, and I've worked in a number of communities around the Bay Area on master plans like this, including downtown San Mateo plan update before they decided to shelve that and go for the general plan update. One of the reasons we're here talking about Hillsdale is because there is this kind of big shift that's happening in retail. I think we all know that there was a shift towards online shopping a long time before the pandemic, and then the pandemic really accelerated that trend. And Hillsdale is obviously not immune to those changes in retail. And some of you may have noticed there's a lot of vacancy in the mall. That's a trend that we're seeing across most malls in the US. And just here's some numbers for that. There's been an 8-fold increase in the number of malls that have been closed for repositioning just in the last 5 years. So this is kind of an accelerating trend. Before the pandemic, there were 22,000 stores nationally that were at risk of closing. So we're still seeing what the fallout is from the pandemic, but that number's obviously increased. and 20 to 25% of all malls in the US are threatened economically. So this is something that's been kind of on the rise at Hillsdale for a while. And that's one of the reasons we're here, because we want to think about what this next evolution is for Hillsdale before it becomes the kind of, you know, sad closed down mall that we've seen in other places. You know, but also Hillsdale has changed over time. And I think retail is a really dynamic land use, actually, more than other types of land uses. It tends to change kind of more rapidly than other uses. And you can see that in the history of the mall. So it started off as a diner and a kind of a marketplace along El Camino Real as a support for the community that was being built nearby as the housing in San Mateo was being built. And then in the 50s, they developed into more of a shopping center. It was one of the first shopping centers actually in the US. And it was this kind of newfangled outdoor shopping center that wasn't a main street. And then in the 80s, it really hit its stride. It had 5 department stores, which were really vibrant economic anchors for shopping centers. But as we know, a lot of those department stores started to close in the 90s, and then that trend was accelerated. And so we saw that at Hillsdale. I don't know if you guys remember when the Sears closed. That was in the 90s. That was an opportunity to kind of think about that part of the mall in a different way. So they tore down the Sears and built what is now, we call it the North Block. It's where Pinstripes is in Minneapolis. But it's a place that instead of being anchored, instead of having this kind of department store anchor, it's more anchored by kind of placemaking, we call it, or experiences. You see people in this plaza hanging out. And it's more of an experience than a kind of a shopping destination, right? And so I think that's kind of a good example of the type of place that Hillsdale wants to become and wants to see more of. And so as we move forward, we're kind of thinking, how do we bring more of that public life that Laura was talking about to Hillsdale and make sure that that's sort of at the heart of whatever this next evolution is. So this is a picture from there, and I think it's really indicative of the commitment of Bohannon Company, is that this is, you know, it's a really vibrant place where people like to come hang out. You see people of all ages, you know, we're spending a lot of time at the mall these days, and every time I'm here, there's like, you know, kids hanging out and jumping off the rocks and people sitting and having a coffee and chatting together. It's a really kind of wonderful public space. And I think that's kind of its primary purpose. So Laura talks a little bit about, you know, this may not look like your typical process. We have broken this process into 3 phases. The first one has been this brainstorming process. We launched the outreach effort back in 2019. Obviously the pandemic happened. And then we kind of relaunched in the spring of 2022. And some of you may have come to that open house that we had. It was our visioning open house. We had it in the Ideas store in the mall, and we also did a virtual auction. And that was really about asking people, what is it that you would like to see here? Big picture, like, what do we, you know, help us understand where we should be looking and where we should be heading with this. We just held the second open house, which was about ideation. So that was in September. And this was really saying, okay, visions, here's some ideas in response to what we heard. Tell us, are we hitting the mark? Are we kind of close? What do you like? What do you not like? How might this look? And that's moving us into this phase of defining ideas. So now we're starting to kind of put pen to paper and try to figure out, like, what are the options of things people might like to see here. We're going to show that at a 3rd workshop coming up next year called our Considering Alternatives workshop in this one. And then based on that feedback, we'll come to a preferred concept. So we've heard a lot of questions. How high is it going to be? What are you going to do? We know you have a plan. We really don't. We're really interested in hearing what it is that people would like to see here. It's frankly a little bit frustrating to our clients sometimes that we don't have a plan yet. But, you know, we really want to be making sure that whatever we do is going to be something that people are really interested in seeing here. So since the start, we've engaged over 4,000 people. We've had 17 events. We've had 640 comments. This was actually from our last open house, so it's probably double that by now. And the way that we've been engaging people is in the store itself with open houses, and also we've been holding office hours. We've done online, actually COVID in this picture, which was, I'll forever remember this open house. I didn't go in person, by the way. And then we've also been doing pop-ups out in the community. So we were at the Music in the Park at Central Park, B Street. And then we went to Mi Rancho Market and had lots of conversations with folks there. And we've also been doing site walks, where we invite people to come join us for 1.5 to 2 hours as we walk around the site and talk about the space together, and stand at the corner of El Camino and say, like, how does this feel? What could be better? And just kind of be in the space to come up with ideas together. Okay, so I know we said 15 minutes, we're running a little long, but I do think it's important to share with you guys what we've heard so far. So we asked people at our May open house, what are your top priorities? And what we heard is the top priority was housing. Number 2 was economic vitality, and number 3 was parks and plazas. And I think this pretty well tracks with conversations we've been having with various folks throughout all of this engagement, that these are really the priorities we've been hearing in our communication and conversation. We also asked people we had a big picture wall, and we said, can you put up pictures that really resonate with you? What are things you'd like to see here? And looking at them, we brought our kind of designer's eye and like, what is it that we see in these pictures? These were some of the popular ones. Places that are really immersive and kind of like appealing to all the senses. So you can imagine standing at this little flower shop and the smells of it, right? Like what is the quality of being in this place? Lots of pictures with people reclining or relaxing, kind of a casual place, a place that feels comfortable and like your living room. We saw a lot of pictures of evening stuff and heard a lot of desire for more activities happening later into the evening. A lot of green. The wall had so much green on it. And there was a lot of, that's one of the reasons we all love living in the Bay Area, right? Is this connection to nature. I think it's really important that there's this feeling of connection to nature. And then also outdoor comfort. And we've heard a lot of conversation, like if you're going to make a park or a plaza, make sure that there's sun and that there's dappled shade and like that it's not windy. And people have said, my concern about taller buildings is it'll cause downdrafts and it's uncomfortable or it'll overshadow places. So really people wanting to make sure that there's like really comfortable outdoor experiences. We've also heard about a mix of housing. So, making sure that there's a variety and diversity types of housing. A lot of desire to have easy access to Caltrain, that there's Caltrain, but it's not always easy to get to. Economic vibrancy, Laura talks a little bit about that. That this has always been a place for jobs in San Mateo. We've actually had a lot of people come through who work in the mall who are saying, I'm worried about my job. Is this going to still be a place where there's jobs in the future? Desire for refreshed retail. So kind of like new, exciting retail experiences. I mentioned the family-friendly activities into the evening, and then this desire for kind of a place to connect with culture and have, feel like you can build community there. So what this adds up to is basically 8 key ingredients. And we have these on the wall in the idea store. Is that you? Did you see yourself in the picture? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we have these up in the wall in the idea store now, and you can go during open house, and we'd love to we're still collecting ideas here, and you can go visit the stuff in person. But just to give you a quick idea, there's these 8 key ingredients, and this is sort of where we're shaping up. And this is our first kind of concept proposal that we've made that we were getting people's feedback on. So the first idea is this magnet shaped thing, which is an energetic new shopping hub at the center. So where the center of activity is now, we want to make sure that stays the center of kind of retail activity. And we see that being kind of staying a hub, but with this like refreshed retail idea. At the Caltrain station, making sure it feels really safe and inviting. I don't know if any of you walk to that Caltrain station, but there's that like really scary ramp that's like not very inviting right now. And there's like, there's a parking lot that's kind of empty, and it could be such a better, safer, more inviting station experience. An open and dynamic community space where you see this heart. We're imagining some kind of space. Is it a plaza? Is it a park? Maybe this is a place with some of the green that we've seen, or the activities of the nighttime concerts, things like that. A network of beautiful pathways that connect all of this. And again, that goes to this wanting to feel safe as you're walking through it. You're not always worried about a car or whatever, that you could imagine your kids walking to Caltrain safely through this area. A welcoming neighborhood edge. So knowing that those edges and the way we meet the neighborhood is really important to get that right. And so what is the right edge along Edison Street? What's the best way to kind of, deal with the form on that edge? What is the edge on El Camino Real? Like how can we make this a more inviting gateway to kind of, as you drive along into San Mateo, you realize that you're in San Mateo and here's Hillsdale, and it's a welcoming, beautiful place that reflects the identity of, what we want to project. Diverse types of housing. We talked a little bit about that already. Jobs and economic benefit we talked about. And then finally, great urban design. We want to make sure this is a really wonderful, high quality place with beautiful materials, high quality architecture, wonderful public places. And I think I'll leave it at that, but just here's some images for some of those ideas that we had up on the board for what people were connecting with in that open house.
Can you go back one slide?
Yeah.
So just, could you point out again what's happening on the east side of El Camino? Or is that's the west side, but the side facing El Camino then?
This side.
Right, with the jobs and economic benefits?
So this bubble is about a safe and inviting link to Caltrain.
Right, the next one.
Oh,
down.
this one.
Thank you.
Yeah, we think to the extent that this is a good place for jobs, that would be the place to do it, is on El Camino, because that's, the easiest access. It's the closest to Caltrain. And in order to have this kind of mixed use neighborhood where there are people who are there during the daytime to help activate the site, help support cafes and restaurants and stuff, to support that kind of economic vibrancy.
So are you guys also involved in the planning on their properties on the east side of El Camino, or is that part of this project?
So Bohannon owns 2 properties on the east side of El Camino, and those are part of the project.
What are those?
It's the Anna Furniture and then the site just south of 31st Street. It's a kind of a sliver.
Former TGI.
The
Yeah.
TGF.
Yeah.
So is that, what are you envisioning for that? That's just this safe and inviting link to Caltrain, or what else is going on?
Yeah, that's one of the things we wanted to get feedback on is what do people think of as a safe and inviting kind of connection to Caltrain? Is it having some buildings there with some retail, maybe you grab a coffee as you get on the train? We're interested in hearing people's thoughts on that.
The other area, I know the city council had a meeting and they went over and they kind of said, well, what about this? And they wanted to change the Hillsdale Garden area. They said they wanted to incorporate something to do with, so is that, I know that Essex, is that part of your plan, developing that Hillsdale Gardens?
We've talked to Essex about Hillsdale Garden Apartments. It's covered as part of this plan because it's an important edge.
Mhm.
We don't have Essex owns it, so we don't have any plans to do anything with it. But we are thinking about it as, part of the kind of the edge of this project.
So it could be a kind of something on their end that could connect with what you're trying to do.
Yeah, we're in conversations with them. We
Okay.
don't have any answers. yet.
Nothing yet, of
Yeah.
course.
But we have had conversations with them about including it in the study area.
Yeah.
So I think in some ways, to me, that shows a willingness on their part to be part of this process.
Mhm.
And we hope to also share the feedback here with everyone.
Yeah, because I remember when they were talking, they said something about a high, high density, kind of a height, and they wanted to incorporate that aspect of that general overview on the 10 areas that they wanted to change, and that was part of, we wanted to incorporate that, so there is communication.
Who said that? The city or Essex said that? No.
It's part of the land use alternatives.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Well, at the time of the meeting, when they were going over these land changes, there was like 10 of them. They also wanted to add the
Yeah.
Hillsdale Gardens kind of abbreviated onto the
Mhm.
project. So we were thinking well, something must be brewing in that, in that world between them, the two of them.
Yeah.
So there is something.
So we have a new member or new person joining us. Can you just tell us your name and your
Yeah.
neighborhood?
Thank you for asking that. I'm Elian Dumitru and I live in San Mateo, homeowner on the east side of 101, the Lula Vista community. Lisa and I have exchanged some emails. We got introduced by one of my neighbors. So she invited me to attend the like.
SMUHA meetings are all open, so anyone could come. Welcome.
Appreciate it.
My question is, San Mateo is really short on parks.
Mhm.
And I remember when COVID first hit, and there was all that restrictions, the Bay Meadows people were furious because even though they had that big park there wasn't enough space for people to go outside. So, that's where Safe Streets, the picking up on the Oakland program came along to try and expand that. But, you look at that huge park and you say, what do they mean? But, it was short. So if you're going to have housing in this discussion, does that include the notion of open space? Because I understand the city's standard for private open space is something silly like 40 square feet. I remember it was about the size of a king size mattress. So, it didn't appear to me to be useful if you wanted to take your kids out for a walk. So, something I'd like to see thought about.
I think that's a great point. And we've heard a desire for open space of all different types throughout this process. So we've heard a desire for nicer, well-lit, well-designed, pleasant places to walk. So not having kind of a tiny sidewalk next to a parking garage next to El Camino. I think that experience of walking down El Camino, if you've ever done it, it's not very pleasant. And thinking about open space, it's not just parks and plazas, it's parks, plazas, streets,
Right.
and connections to other open spaces. And we think that all of those are important in this plan. I mean, I am at the mall quite often, and I go and I sit in the North Block and like take a few calls and have some lunch, and it is packed most times of the day. And I think that, and we as a design team think that there's enough activity in the Hillsdale area to support more public open spaces like the North Plaza, like some of the great parks that we see down the street in East and West Hillsdale parks, and that those should be incorporated as
Good.
part of this plan.
Are you guys ready for questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I just noticed
There's some raised hands.
there are some raised hands, so Rich, I'm gonna ask if you would like, do you have a question, Rich?
Yes, I do. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I not only have a question, I have a couple things. What I've seen in the past, Macy's notified the public they were going to close 100 stores, and they backed off on that because so much was closed down during the pandemic. There's a store in Palo Alto and one in San Francisco. I'm very worried about this Hillsdale Macy's. And where Macy's is closed, with the Nordstrom's near, Nordstrom's is closed. That's 500,000 square feet of retail space that could go dead. And this shopping center is a major cash collection for the city of San Mateo. And so losing this center as a viable center would really impact the services the city can offer. So I'm very much in favor of the reimagining of Hillsdale to try to keep it viable. And just a couple things I want to say. When Measure H passed, it limited the height to 75 feet in San Mateo with a community benefit. And my neighborhood has the 75-foot limit. Many of the buildings that were built prior to that are higher than 75 feet, are actually quite well done and well landscaped. The buildings they built after that stuck every piece of concrete on the building and are not really well landscaped because there's not enough room to landscape. So saying that, I don't have a problem with height, but I do have a problem with the controversy that it's going to cause in this neighborhood. So I want to work with you to get the maximum you can get for housing and other things without creating a bloodbath like we had. And it was a very angry fight over Bay Meadows. Would like to avoid that. So saying that, my recommendations would be housing on the east side of El Camino with some retail supporting for that housing and a nice entryway into Caltrain. Unfortunately, the entrances from El Camino to Caltrain are very limited. You can walk right into the Caltrain Plaza from Michael's parking lot, but there's no way to get in. It's fenced off. So we've got to change those things to make this a viable station for all of the housing and consumers on the both the east side and west side of the Hillsdale station. I think housing is a good mix along with retail and restaurants. on the south end. Again, we have to watch the density to stop. I mean, I'm not afraid of density, but there are many people in the community that are, and we don't need to cause another huge fight. So I think that you guys are working toward getting us through these projects without a tremendous upheaval within the city. And I'm all in favor of that. I would like to say that I was involved in Bay Meadows early on. I recognized that the 31st Street grade separation was going to be helpful to Hillsdale Shopping Center because it makes an easy walk to Hillsdale from Bay Meadows, where a lot of people live. And the good thing for Hillsdale is that much of the retail has been pulled back from Bay Meadows, so it will focus more on the Hillsdale Shopping Center. So I hope we can get through this. I know you're looking at trying to keep down as much rancor as possible and work with the community. So I'm supportive of that. Thank you for letting me speak.
Okay, thank you, Rich. So Steve, do you want to respond to that? Because we.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the time here. I live on Arrowwood Lane, literally right behind the mall. Unlike Rich, I am concerned about density and I am concerned about height, as I am a neighbor of the mall and right up against it. And Rich, I'm not sure where you live, but listen, you guys did a fantastic job with the North Block, and we battled that. We battled the Target going in there. We battled the theater being on the back side. You listened. You moved the theater to the front side. That was great, and that's what a neighborhood and a partnership within the neighborhood we continue to look for with this development. I think the biggest thing here, and you say you don't have a plan yet, or you're just collecting ideas, and that's great. You need to do that, and we see creative maps like this and ideas come forth from it. But my question is, I hear a lot of this is what people want, or this is what people imagine, and my question is, where are those people from? Are they from the neighborhood? Are they from the outside the neighborhood coming in? It would be great to have concert capabilities. It'd be great to have open parks. What does that mean to the neighborhood? And what is the neighborhood saying? And how are you weighing what the neighbors are saying that will drive your final plan versus what people coming into the mall are saying and want to see? I haven't heard any of that. And that is critical. And that was really important to us here this close to the mall when the North Block was being developed, and the city council meetings that we sat and fought at the Bohannon Group. And then we finally came together as a final conclusion. So I really haven't heard a single idea as it pertains to the neighborhood. And what does it mean of a soft edge? Is that entrance to living quarters? Is that going to be blocked? What does that mean? What's the height? Is it really lower? Imagine yourself right next to, imagine yourselves right next to the mall living, that's your house. What don't you want? So that's the only thing from a neighborhood perspective. I am looking forward to seeing what your plans are and you guys getting more involved with the neighbors. And I appreciate these forums and you guys coming to it and letting us speak.
Thank you so much for that, Steve. And also Richard, both of you guys, thanks so much for those comments. It's hopefully what you're getting from us is it's really, we know we're going to be working on this together for a long time together. And I really appreciate, Richard, your comments about let's, find ways to work together and make this nice for everybody. Because I think it's true, we're all going to be seeing each other's faces for a long time. And we've actually had meetings with Hillsdale Beresford neighborhood specifically, and specifically the Edison Street neighbors. And we also reached out to them to invite them tonight. I don't know if any of them have showed up, but yeah, so and maybe, I don't know if they want to speak to how that feels like that's going so far. But I think we really understand that this connection to the neighborhood is really important, and being sensitive to the needs of the immediate neighbors that are gonna, be living next door to this change is an important part of this plan. And so we, if you have thoughts on how you'd like to see that edge treated, it sounds like lower heights is important to you. We're really interested in hearing what those thoughts are.
Well, I'm curious to see what are your thoughts? You guys are the planners, the urban planners. If you're up against the neighborhood what don't you want that neighborhood to experience?
Yeah, I mean, some of the things that we've heard concerns about is overflow parking. So making sure that we have a really smart parking strategy that's not gonna, that we're not under parking the site so that there's overflow, and that some folks have already experienced that with Hillsdale Garden Apartments. And so that's a concern. Another concern we're hearing is, in the past, when they built the parking garage at the North Block, there was concern about cut through traffic through the neighborhood. So trying to make sure that we're not, any traffic coming off El Camino doesn't go further into the neighborhood, that we kind of capture it before it might have a chance to, go past the site. Honestly, we heard about trash that was out there and we made sure we went out and picked that up. Recently, we've heard, Laura talked about the kind of like narrow sidewalk next to the parking garage. I don't think the parking garage itself is a very good neighbor at the moment, although it is quiet, so maybe that's a benefit. But thinking about like, how do you make Edison Street more of a neighborhood street and less of a kind of, commercial back house? And definitely scale. We've heard a lot of desire for that to be lower rise along that edge. So those are the things we've heard that we're taking into account.
Good. There are 2 questions in chat. I'll read them out. From Don Burkett. Can you expand a bit more on what you'll be doing as part of the process to develop plans for welcoming neighborhood edge? Do you envision parking lots to remain on Edison? The photo on the next slide looked like retail, but could you ever see it being a green belt separation instead?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if what I just said helped answer that question. I think, looking at this, what we're thinking about is housing for that edge. And, as I said, we've heard a lot of desire for lower rise housing along that edge. Certainly looking at, how to incorporate open space into that edge is something that we should also look at.
And maybe to just build on that, and also Steve, to go back to some of your comments. Steve, I think I also, I think I had a good conversation with you and your wife at the rock and roll.
Yes, I remember you. I remember.
Good to see you. I'm glad that you joined us.
Great conversation.
Yes. And I think actually some of your wife's suggestions are things that we're thinking about. And she suggested that maybe there should be townhomes or stoops or a lower rise edge or a more green path, a green place to walk, a safer place to walk. We've also heard that people want to be able to let their kids actually play on Edison, not have it feel like a street that's only for cars. I mean, walking on it right now, you're on a tiny path between cars and parking. And it doesn't feel very well lit. It doesn't feel very safe. It doesn't feel like you can kind of use it as your front yard. And those are actually all things that we're thinking about for that edge. We don't think that the edge of Edison is going to be a great place for a concert hall or a very, very loud and late use. We do feel like that's an edge that we need to be sensitive to. We think housing makes a lot of sense on that edge, and we're developing our ideas for that based on this feedback that we're hearing from you. So we appreciate the feedback.
Great.
So another question was, will there be a pop-up on this endeavor at the San Mateo Central Park celebration this Saturday?
That is a good question. Actually, if you
I don't know, because we just learned about it last week.
But if you go 2 slides over, we have a list of our upcoming events. So if we don't catch you there, you can go to our online social pinpoint, and you can also come by our storefront, and we'll be announcing some new pop-ups soon. But I think we found out about that too.
I think we're also trying to figure out something that would make sense for the holidays, like, when people are Christmas shopping, can we do something in the storefront that's going to be, so.
Good. So, Lisa,
So
by the way, Lisa Nash is here.
I'm curious, and I don't know if this is in your purview, but are you guys having any discussions with the developer for the Hillsdale Inn redevelopment? Because I'm looking at, when you were back on your little colorful slide, you've got all your housing on the one side where Hillsdale Boulevard is. So that's going to be a main artery out to 101, which will also be impacted by the Hillsdale Inn redevelopment. So it's already an F-rated intersection there at Saratoga and Hillsdale. So I don't know if it's within what you all are looking at about the impacts of where you're putting the housing and what arteries are being moved. So just something to kind of throw into the mix.
That's great. Yeah, thank you. And, I think too, when we look at the intersections of Hillsdale and Edison and Hillsdale and El Camino, we know those are very different corners. I mean, when I stand at the corner of Hillsdale and Edison, I feel like I turn one way and I'm like in a neighborhood, and I turn the other way and I'm on a freeway. And I think what we want to do, and what Gail has a lot of experience doing, is designing streets so that they feel more comfortable for pedestrians. And we also are going to be using traffic demand management measures on this site. That is something that will be part of this project. We don't know exactly what those will be yet, but we understand that traffic and parking are issues in this area that we'll need to address.
We also think, malls like this tend to be bigger generators of traffic than other types of mixed uses, because all the traffic comes at the same time. So it's like you have everybody's coming to shop at the same time at peak hours or on weekends. And so we're going to be, once we have more confirmed kind of like plans instead of blobs, we're going to be running traffic studies to understand what the impacts might be and try to mitigate those.
So Rich Hedges, you had your hand up. Do you have a question or?
Yeah, looking at the page that's up now brought a question to my mind. Hillsdale has a second floor. It looks like we may be planning podium over Hillsdale for either retail or housing or some sort of use. Is that true? And just on what Lisa said, I'm very much against that development at the motel, the old motel on Hillsdale. Nobody will be able to do anything but drive to services there. It's so dangerous to cross that street. I'm just hoping that doesn't happen. I support not doing anything there. But I'm absolutely very concerned, not concerned, but curious about whether we're going to build over Hillsdale. It wouldn't be a bad idea, actually.
You mean over Hillsdale Boulevard?
Yeah.
Ah, I see. No, I think we would keep that street. I think we'll look
I don't mean building on the street. I mean a podium over it. That's actually, some cities have done stuff like that.
Oh, interesting. No, we hadn't thought about that.
But
Yeah.
that's
I mean, the slide kind of makes it look like that, the way.
Really see
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
It looks like that.
Yeah, you drive under the heart.
That's why I asked the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is, we're looking at programming here, not kind of specific building or layout uses. But I see why that could be misleading. But no, we hadn't really thought about a podium building over Hillsdale Boulevard. And I also just want to clarify, we don't have any purview over the Hillsdale Inn or anything to do with that project. So of course, we're going to work with whatever other projects are occurring in the city, but we don't have control of that project. That was closer to 101.
Yeah, we understand that. That was just a comment from what Lisa said and a chance for me to say I don't like it.
All right. All right. So a couple more questions in the chat from Laurie. And is there an existing development that you might like to emulate or draw from? Are there elements of Centennial and Bro, for example, that would work here?
It is such a good question. It's one we keep asking each other, and we've gotten this question many times. And I think the sad answer is there's not something that we want to emulate in the Bay Area. We actually feel like a lot of development in the Bay Area is not that great. A lot of the new buildings going up are pretty generic, not always the greatest materiality or the greatest kind of
I mean, the glass boxes downtown.
the glass boxes, the stucco boxes, take your pick.
Yeah.
But you know, we really actually are excited about this being a place that could kind of break the mold of that, like everyday market driven development. And we also know that our client is a legacy landholder. The Bohannons have been in San Mateo for a very long time and care a lot about what this place will look and feel like. So we're excited to be the new president. But I don't know that we have a kind of one person.
Great.
And as a result of that, we did actually take a trip as a team to Copenhagen, where Gail has designed great places, just to take a look at how are there some elements of great design that we can bring to San Mateo. And then we learned a lot while we were there.
Good. So other questions. What are the options for traffic from Hillsdale to 101 and back? It's the Hillsdale Boulevard issue. So I don't know if you can answer that quickly.
I'm not sure we have an answer for that
Yeah.
yet.
All right.
Yeah, not yet, but we will. We will have an answer to that, once we run some traffic studies, but we're still a few steps away.
Well, we can hire the boring machine and put a big tunnel. Yeah. Yeah, let me take care of this.
You want to take?
I'll take some more of these and then we'll come back to Mike. Affordable housing, what percentage do you envision?
We don't know yet. We're curious to know what people's thoughts are on affordable housing. Sometimes you talk to people about affordable housing, they're really excited about it, and other times they're worried about it. So that's one of the places that we are still gathering feedback.
Yeah.
And we know the city requires 15%. We know that Ohio requires affordable housing. So we are curious.
I think the biggest issue with affordable housing is it's all done numerically. Right? Oh, well, this is good for people earning 80% of the area median income. Well, who the hell are they? What jobs are paying 80% of the area median income? You know, when you talk about it emotively, people discuss, oh, it's the teachers, the nurses, the baristas, you know, we want to make sure they've got places to live here. Well, okay. What categories do they fill in? How many of them are there? How much housing do we need to build to accommodate them? And can we build housing that doesn't look like it's, you know, a project?
One of the other things we've heard too is a desire for a diversity of housing types. So like, you know, family units and empty nesters. And can my son come live here when he graduates from college and things like that? I mean, I think there's a real hunger for lots of different types of housing in San Mateo because there's not a whole lot of diversity right now.
Yeah.
Also be able to go from being a young software engineer who was renting someplace and can live in a studio on 20 bedroom to someone who wants to put food stamp. And what you're developing is what people can live down. So the 2 and 3 bedroom houses, so much about height and wonder is wow, the opportunity for this is amazing. And how can this
Please speak up.
Okay.
She's, come on, walk down here. hon.
Sorry.
Yeah, when you guys were talking about townhouses before, I mean, I know that when they were looking at the Concord passages and the developers' last take on that was to make about 1/5 or 1/4 of it into for sale townhomes. And the residents around were very excited about that because that meant that there would be people invested in their community long term.
Right.
Right, you know, yeah, did that get included? I think it did.
It's up on, it's back in January.
Okay. Anyway, Lisa, do you want to wrap up what you were saying?
No, I was just saying that so much of what I hear is people want to build this to be a real vibrant community, not just a very prosperous one. We want it to be prosperous, but also vibrant. To your point about different kinds of houses, but also so that the community feels like Hillsdale is their backyard. You know, so it's not just having concerts for the city, it's the Beresford School is able to use it, it feels like it's something that we talk. So there's a real, almost permeable back and forth. And you've got a scale issue where it can be more human.
I really like thinking about like, what is it that helps people build community? And there's a project I'm working on where they're designating floor captains to like be the person who runs the meal train when someone on your floor gets pregnant and is coming home from the hospital. Like, what are the things that, how can you build community in ways that are like a little less obvious, you know, but are the things that really help support people in their everyday lives, and not just for homeowners, but for renters, you know?
You don't do mixed use buildings. That'd be the first step.
You have a bunch of questions.
Yeah, there are a bunch, and some of these, and Mike did. So I was thinking some of these are where are things going to be and the rest. So maybe if you guys can, you know, put that up, we can advertise it. But Mike, why don't you go ahead with your question?
Okay, well, question and first couple of observations. So make those quickly. So I guess one of the things, I live in the neighborhood on 31st. So one of the things we're worried about is, you know, I'm bringing it back to the city council meetings and that type of thing. Mr. Bohannon wanted to make an exception to the height and density of the Measure Y that we have in effect. So he wanted an exception to it, so it freaked us out. The other observation is the nervousness about the fact that it's in the railroad corridor, this construction. So that exemplifies them for parking, for instance. The other observation is the infrastructure we're worried about. With Bay Meadows opening up, I mean, brought more traffic. Now this project's going to bring a lot more traffic, permanent traffic, housing, that type of thing. The other comment is I had some work done, so I actually walked from 9th Avenue all the way home, 31st, and I came down Delaware and talking about construction and fitting in the neighborhoods and such. I felt such a disconnect between that, was it Village Green or something like that?
Station Park Green.
Station Park Green. What a disconnect. I'm sorry, but you know, I mean, it just doesn't fit. It feels cold. You walk by it, it's just buildings all the way back and such. And they haven't incorporated anything with the neighborhood here. So just because you have 19th Avenue there, it seems like it doesn't really flow at all. So I'm wondering, with my observations, what do you think about, you know, the things that we're nervous about? Parking, traffic, infrastructure, because I've never heard with any of these projects where, well, we need to widen this or make it different, or we need to provide better access in and out for our amount of, people and industries and whatever you're bringing in is going to bring on the neighborhood. So basically, maybe you could draw some answers out of my comments.
No, I think those are all really great observations and concerns that we've been hearing. So maybe there's just kind of address a few of them. I'll try to address all of them. So I think something like Station Park Green is actually what we want to avoid. And that's why when I see this question of like, are there examples in the Bay Area that you want to draw from? And I say the answer is no, that's exactly why.
Okay.
I think that a lot of the development that is happening in the Bay Area is a bit soulless, and it doesn't always fit in with the neighborhood. It doesn't always feel like part of the neighborhood. And I think here we're really trying to engage with the neighborhood because we want this to be a place that people want to go.
That's
that
encouraging.
Yeah.
Very encouraging.
That they want to send their kids to go get an ice cream and like feel comfortable sending them down the street. And I think the other piece of that is that for this place to work as a draw, as a regional draw, as a neighborhood draw, as a place where people want to live, where they want to work, where they want to spend their time, we also know that it has to be both sufficiently parked and not too hard to get to. So a few things that we have ideas on. One is really emphasizing that connection from Caltrain. We agree. I think somebody said that it feels like a lost opportunity that you can't exit the Caltrain to the west. we agree. We hope that we can work with Michael's to improve that connection. We don't know exactly how that would work, but we do feel very strongly that that connection from Caltrain could be improved. And not just the connection from the Caltrain platform to the street, but also across El Camino. I often walk across there. I feel like, I'm in my 30s and I have to sprint. If you're not going right when the Walkman turns on, you gotta hustle. And I think we can really improve that. I mean, we have a great opportunity here, where we have full coverage of those corners, and we can work with Caltrans and work with State Highway to improve that connection. And then I think as far as this feeling like a place where you don't want to kind of turn your back to it. Like you don't want, like you can be excited that you live near Hillsdale and it feels like an asset to the community. That's something that we're really excited about. We feel like the North Block was a great asset to the community. We see people there all the time. We feel like it's really well loved by the people that visit it, and we want to continue building on the energy that the North Block brought, and not kind of turn our backs to the neighborhood the way that frankly the current parking structures do. So I think that there's a lot of room for improvement on the site.
Thank you. Good. All right, it's 8 o'clock, but we still have some questions, so maybe we do some quick answers. And I see 2 more here.
We'll do rapid fire.
All right. So do you plan any meetings for the adjacent neighbors, Arrowwood and Hickory and Chestnut Lane?
We're happy to. So we've met with the Edison Street neighbors, and John will take down your name, and we're happy to reach out and come talk to you.
All right, you can see this, that's right. So as Uni's question about the global pandemic, you guys adapting plans or thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the pandemic in some ways really opened up the opportunity for people to spend more time where they live. I mean, I know that I didn't spend a whole lot of time in my neighborhood during the day before I started working from home. And that's made it so that I actually changed my doctor. I changed my dentist. I changed my vet. I now try to walk as much as I can and accomplish most of my daily tasks by staying in my neighborhood rather than getting in a car. And that's something that we think we can really build on here. By having a mixed use neighborhood, we can create vibrancy and we can allow people to accomplish those everyday tasks within a 5-minute walk or a 10-minute walk or a 5-minute bike ride. And in doing so, we can have more people on the street, create a more vibrant neighborhood, and also take cars off the road. So we think that's a big opportunity.
Good. Okay. The questions keep popping in, so I don't think we'll get to all of them, but we will get to them if you guys answer them and send them to me. I'll broadcast them. If you know the people, that'd be great.
Yeah, we're taking notes on all of these questions. So some of these requests for meetings, we will follow up with.
Good. So Daniel, you had a question.
It might be a difficult question. So I don't know if I should be asking you, if I should be asking City Hall, Planning Commission.
Not yet.
Let's be optimistic. So, let me say this guy, these ladies, really good question. You know, if I just said, here's your budget, I'm sure you can do it. But what we're seeing in San Mateo is not great results. And my concern is that they may come up with the best urban design since urban design started with the Agora and towns.
Yeah.
But how do we make sure as residents, citizens, whatever, neighbors, that the end result is actually optimal based on the design and not some hypothetically owner, don't want to accuse anybody saying, well, I don't have the budget for that. I'm gonna squeeze this in for another 50% there. Let's cut 20, parking spots there. And then we wake up to station park
Station
green.
Green.
I mean, another example, by the way, is I was driving up Delaware on my way to here. There's a couple of buildings there. I can't even tell if they're residential.
Hmm.
I know near the that event. That's not a good sign.
So
Some of them are commercial. some of them aren't.
but I think the question is mostly directed towards city council. Because there are no design requirements in our city.
Architectural control.
Yes, there's design guidelines, but you can say as a developer or even, a homeowner, the guidelines, I'm not going to do them. So we need to have, I believe, we need to have architectural controls. Allowing randomly designed buildings to stick together, you end up with whatever you end up with. The old saying, proper prior planning prevents poor performance. Well, I think the first 3 Ps is not something that our city has been strong on.
How do we get this?
And to be honest with you, and this is probably something I shouldn't say,
You're being recorded.
yes, we need a better city council. It's that simple.
Starts from the top up.
Yeah.
Well, for
Way down.
Reimagine Hillsdale, one of the things that we've been talking about is how do we ensure architectural integrity in space? And as part of our master plan, or those architectural guidelines and goals, we are hoping to build into our plan and codify some of the main elements of it so that there isn't.
My concern is not with your output. But we all know, every designer I'm sure knows that graphic where, what happens to the various stages of design of a swing and what happens with the result at the end. We've all seen that. That's why I'm concerned about.
Yeah.
Not the vision.
I agree. And I think that's something that, again, architectural controls.
To your point about guidelines, there is a move now towards making them into objective standards.
Mhm.
And, we would want to do that in whatever controls we come up with. We would want them to be objective, quantifiable standards. so
And the
that-
state requires that anyway.
Yeah.
They can't be guidelines.
Well, I hope
So,
everybody read that report in the Chronicle today, that in the editorial, saw that today, right?
I did.
Well, what it says is that you have to meet your quota as a city. If you don't meet your quota as a city, then the state can come in and say, well, you didn't meet your quota, anything goes in your city now. Anything goes.
Yeah, that's
Chronicle, read it.
SB
It's
340,
scary.
I guess.
It's absolutely scary. It's
the state is not a friend. The state, Sacramento is passing rules that essentially. That's a whole topic of conversation, but
So they can't hear us.
yeah, well, they can probably hear me because the microphone's right beside me, but to the point to be made, speak up. But at any rate,
They were asking quotas for what? He meant quotas for housing requirements,
yeah,
planning for housing.
well, yeah, every city's required to
yeah, the
give a
regional
certain amount
housing,
and has to be turned in at a certain date. And if you go past the date, then you fault and then you fault, and anything goes in your city. It's a scary situation that that they put us
So
in.
we're being asked to answer more of the questions in chat, and I haven't seen, Mike, could you scroll up?
I've been going down because they come
As
in.
he goes down, when you guys bring your vision, will you also, if there's going to be any state density bonuses, present what that would look like? So you come with your whatever story building and then you show us like what the actuality would be after the state density bonuses. Because one thing I think residents do not enjoy is to be presented a 5-story building and then find out they're getting a 7-story building with no additional parking, like what happened downtown. So it'd be great for all that whole transparency and relationship building stuff. If you say, hey, we're gonna be showing you all possibilities, that would be a benefit.
So in terms of, Joanne, did you have a question?
Yeah, my question is, as far as reimagining Hillsdale, is the north block part of the whole thing, or is that gonna remain the same?
So it's part of our study area, but we think North Block will remain as it is. It was developed very recently, as you probably know.
Too much investment went into that one.
Yeah,
A lot of
The only part we might think about doing differently is the parking garage. There's a parking garage there. that's-
I think the townhouses along Edison would be great. I think we need trees. I think we need open space. And like other people have said, everything I see that's being built in San Mateo, frankly, boring, cheap looking, that in 20, 30 years. I mean, Station Park, green already.
Hmm.
We want to be proud of the city. Yeah. I hear people talk about how San Mateo used to be a place you were proud. And it was a place you came to. We should be the heart of the peninsula. But we also have to be a very family-oriented individual, very human, vibrant human. And the other thing, just the things that are being built is not running. There's a way to
Yeah,
do that, or a different style other than just being built today.
there are ways that you can do that. At any rate, a lot of questions about parking. I don't think anyone in the city believes that you can should build apartment buildings without adequate parking for the residents. So,
Neither does the
And neither
client
does
team.
the client.
Yeah.
yeah, so
We say no to that.
So you're saying that nobody,
everyone thinks we need parking to go along with housing.
interesting. I don't see that in the plan for the outlets.
Oh, well, I'm talking about the residents.
Let's keep going.
So that implies the planning commission doesn't do this.
I will
He's being
hold my tongue.
Because he's being recorded.
Yeah.
Talk later.
So there's comments about New York City, a lot of pop-up stores in various neighborhoods.
Like, will you do me a favor? There's a lot of requests in here for meetings with adjacent neighbors. Can
Mhm.
you put my email address in the chat? I would love for people to reach out to me to schedule those.
All
We wanna
right,
Have as much of these, cohart@coplanning.com.
Kohar,
KO, yeah. Please reach out to me and we will get separate neighborhood meetings set up with smaller groups to talk about Reimagine Hillsdale. Your input is very valuable to us.
yeah.
Thank you.
And even if you can't, if you don't follow that email, you can always go to our website and just fill out a contact form and we'll get your information that way too.
All right, so
Hey, can I ask one quick question? I'm sorry, I tried to get this in the chat. When are the first set of plans going to be made available for everybody to look at? I know you're still collecting a lot of things, but you have a date. You got to get a set of plans out. When is that?
In the first quarter of next year, we're gonna have an open house where we're sharing. We're planning to share kind of built different alternatives, what the site could look like based on what we've heard.
Mhm.
And then from the feedback that we get from there, probably another 4 months later, 4-ish months later, we will have an open house where we share the kind of preferred or on the preferred alternative, which would be the plans that you're referring to. So middle of next year.
okay. So Rich, you had your hand up again. Do you have?
No. Others.
Well, who else is, I've gone through.
Kathleen, may I just ask a quick question? Kathleen Brown, 140 Briar Lane. Are you planning to keep Trader Joe's?
We've heard a lot of desire to keep Trader Joe's and to also keep grocery stores in general. So that seems like an important thing to include, and it sounds like you would agree.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Over to Rich. You're still with us, Rich? Nope,
Maybe he just has his hand up from the last time.
Yeah.
who knows? All right, good.
I feel like you guys can
So
follow
this is great. I'm thrilled with the amount of participation. I'm sorry if I got a little out there with some of the comments, but I'm passionate about the fact that I think the city needs to really improve its game when it comes to planning. It's a shame. I'm also involved with a Heritage Alliance that's trying to stimulate the preservation of our historic assets. There are over 500 historic homes west of El Camino that are being ignored. So I think we've got so many things to think about in terms of the design. And somebody mentions New York. I lived in New York. My first house was in New York. You know what I loved about New York, the Brooklyn sections of New York? You could walk by a house and you didn't know if it was a single family and a 5-story or 6 families in the same building. So you had an amazing array of how family sizes and styles in the buildings that were, beautifully aligned, wide streets, good sidewalks. And maybe that's an idea for how you do affordable housing instead of Pruitt-Igos. For those of you who know that.
Like, one more comment,
Go ahead. Which,
all the way down.
Okay.
I don't see any, I mean, it's hard to pull out of this
Yeah.
questions.
No, it was, can the chat be saved?
The chat will be saved.
Okay.
And the chat, all of this is available, will be available on the Cemetery United website.
Perfect, great.
The whole meeting has been recorded. And I think all the questions will be showing up in that too.
Can SMUHA also share with Beresford Hillsdale Neighborhood Association so that we can have the link on our website as well?
Yes,
Because I think most of these people are in that.
Yeah, so what we'll do, we've just actually started a YouTube channel for SMUHA. So we'll put this recording in the YouTube channel, because then it'll be much easier to share.
mhm.
We would love to see these questions so we can provide a response as well, so.
Yep.
Save chat, save chat, save chat.
And we also do have a team member who's just online and is taking notes for all of this and taking notes in the chat. So
Yeah.
I know we're not taking notes in the room, but we are taking notes.
Yeah.
I took notes in the room too.
Yeah.
Both.
All righty, so good.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
Opportunity
good
to be
meeting.
Here. This is the first of many meetings we're gonna have with all of you. We're really excited about the future of this place and only gonna be great if we all do it together. So thank you for having us.
Everybody wants to be guests.
Yeah, all right.
So does the ownership. I think we're all on the same page. Yeah.
That's what everybody needs, right?
Yeah.
All right, we have one new message. Thank you.
Thank you. And tonight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you all. So before everyone runs off, David Cohen, you wanted to make a comment to the group?
Yes, I would. Hi, Michael. Can you guys hear me all right?
I can, yes.
Okay. Hi, greetings from Ethics San Mateo. We're a new organization in our infancy with dedicated to truth, transparency, and ethical conduct in city government. First of all, we're not pro-growth, but we're not anti-growth. We're in truth and transparency in how the city council will decide what to do. And that's the same for everything that's coming up before city council and our commissioners and boards. We are recruiting members to help form this. Right now, we have a few things put together. We're getting information out to people to try and get some founding members in. We have a few at this point. We have probably a dozen additional people that are interested. All of the members take a pledge that they're going to be fair and impartial in their work with Ethics San Mateo. I have my opinions. I know who I support. I know what I like and what I don't like, but I've pledged to put that aside when looking at ethical conduct. Ethical conduct to us is two different categories. One is law. We all know that there's federal, state, and local election laws, and lots of laws that have to do with ethics, more or less. But then there's the best things to do, the best practices, standards that should be set by what we feel is a commission appointed by the city council with the authority to enforce these regulations, laws, and the standards that they set. Don't ask me what those standards are going to be, because I'm not on that commission and probably won't be selected to it. But we want a fair and impartial ethics commission to be appointed. We have put out a press release, not yet been picked up by anybody, but I have talked with the editor of the San Mateo Daily Journal about it. We have, as I said, a number of members. We're not ready to come out with a lot of information yet, but we've officially launched Ethics San Mateo as of yesterday, which, by the way, is Global Ethics Day. And yes, that's a real thing. And you can look it up. Because we believe global ethics starts with local action. Again, we're nonpartisan. We're not funded by anybody at this point, except me paying for the paper that and electricity that's being used. We're looking for people from across the entire city of San Mateo to join us and help form this thing. And that's why I wanted to come in on this association meeting tonight, rather than writing each of the associations individually. We're looking for people that are interested in making sure our city council, our commissioners, our board members are accountable for the ethics that they employ. As again, we're not partisan. We're not pro-growth, anti-growth, whatever, as an organization, and we pledge not to be. We're simply going to do two things. We're going to reward those people and recognize those people within city government and businesses and organizations that either influence or do business with the city or need permits, whatever, that are meeting the highest of ethical standards.
Good.
And we're going to point out when we find ethical standards that are somebody who isn't meeting those ethical standards.
Great.
We prefer to do the award kind of a thing. So what I'm pitching for is all of you to consider looking at this organization with the information I will send you, and perhaps becoming at least a founding member. If not that, then at least a member as we grow from something that I envisioned about 2 weeks ago, watching Nextdoor light up about ethics and good ethics and bad ethics and everything else. And nobody could do anything about it except, run their mouths on texting on Nextdoor. Let's do something. Let's put something together and get some accountability going.
All right, Dave.
If you write ethics San Mateo, one word, @gmail.com, I'll get you information.
Great. Dave, can you put that in the chat? Do you know how to do that?
Yeah, I surely can. I open up the little chat window here. Where is it?
All right, thank you. So we need to do some business among the SMUHA members. And one is to approve the minutes that Lisa distributed.
Or give me any changes, necessary.
Right. So
I don't mean to be rude, but
correct. Did you enjoy the meeting, Daniel?
eye-opening. This plan belongs to somebody.
You can just leave it there. I'll be other. It's not.
Thank you for the invite, Lisa.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you
you.
for me.
It was great.
Good. Daniel, are you part of the Central Neighborhood Association?
Not yet, but
You should join.
You met Mike one hour.
Okay, at any rate. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Good. All right, does anyone have comments on the minutes? Okay, do I have a motion? Okay, second,
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. All right, good. Minutes approved. Joanne, treasurer's report.
Okay, we have $3,414.25 in our account.
Great.
And Lisa, I have another check for you.
Yay, because I like to misplace checks.
Is that the pizza check that got
Yeah,
lost?
that's check, 100 years ago.
By the way,
Thank you,
I
Jim.
sent the application so we can have an online banking capability to the
Oh.
bank.
Okay.
And they were supposed to get back to me, but haven't, so I don't know what's going on, but we'll get there. So Pam Reilmeyer, are you still with us? Okay, she's our newest member. Burrell, Nick.
Oh, yes, I'm here.
Pamela, as our newest member, I just wanted to get your perspective briefly on tonight's meeting.
Pretty much.
I thought it was really good. I have taken part in some of the Reimagine Hillsdale open houses and the walkabouts. Actually, I was at one of the ones where Lisa was. It's definitely nice to see how they're still doing outreach before they say that they have any concrete plans. And I am kind of surprised they haven't already involved some of those neighborhoods that we're speaking up tonight, just because those are right there, but I'm glad that they are going to connect. I'm excited to see what they do. I'm hoping that they do create a lot of open space, and I think it was you were saying, you know, we need more park space, more green space, things like that, and a variety of different housing. I love the stoop idea. I lived in New York. I love stoops. I lived in Brooklyn. Now, we'll see next year, I guess.
All right. Thank you, Pam. So I'm going to wrap the meeting unless anyone has anything else to say. Great. Well, thank you all for attending, and I look forward to seeing you in the next meeting.
Looks like more meetings like this in the forum. Great things.
Yeah.
Thank you for arranging it.
You're most welcome. Thank you for attending. Bye-bye.